Hi and welcome to SCW The Wrestling Channel here on YouTube.com. Thank you for choosing the channel and choosing the video. Please subscribe right now. Leave any comments in the comment section. Please like and share the video as well. Episode 7 of Ask SCW is here for you right here, right now. Taking your questions from Twitter.com. SCW Wrestling Channel. You can find me on Twitter with the @SCW_Steve. I've got your questions right here, right now, and we're going to kick off this week with Dylan Ketchum, who asked me, did you think it was a good choice to give Chris Jericho the AEW World Championship? Well, yes, I do. I think it was the right move to give him that belt to begin with, for many reasons, really, mainly because of the fact that AEW do want to become a big brand that's going to bring in casual viewers, and for that, his name has been a main event name for over 20 years now in the industry. Of course, mainly with WWE, but he has been main eventing New Japan as well in the last couple of years. It makes a lot of sense because people that have come away from wrestling, not been watching wrestling, they'll hear that Chris Jericho is world champion of this new promotion, and it will probably interest them more to check it out rather than some person they've probably never heard of in Hangman Adam Page, which of course, for hardcore wrestling fans, we're aware of Adam Page. We would be in favour of him winning the championship, but Jericho, he is a bigger name on the world stage, and I don't think he will be world champion for a real long extended period. I'm not expecting a 12-month reign or anything like that, but I do think he's the perfect candidate to have the championship to begin with. You saw his post-show interview, that he was very cocky, and it was perfectly done the way it was all put together. Chris Jericho is going to be a fantastic heel world champion. The way he was just really putting down AEW with lack of thank yous, lack of respect, and it's like, you're welcome, I'm here, I have the championship, you now have no choice but to respect me. Also to sort of have a dig as well with the food that was left there, the salami, and as well, when saying that the bubbly was cheap and rubbish as well. So I think Chris Jericho is going to be a very entertaining world champion, and I think he is going to be the right name to take it forward at the beginning of AEW on TNT, and probably going into the next pay-per-view as well. So for me, it was the right choice. I think Hangman has got a chance of probably getting back into the World Championship picture, but maybe when AEW has been on TNT for maybe 6 months or so, maybe it will feel more realistic to have someone who perhaps at the moment for the world of pro wrestling, of casual viewers, is a relative unknown. It would make more sense than if he sends a high profile name from the start of weekly TV to then become a main player within AEW, to then become champion in maybe 6 months' time. Then I think it would have a more lasting effect, and to also then beat Chris Jericho at that point, that definitely would make him more over than perhaps what it would if he was to do it now. Of course, to beat Chris Jericho is a big deal at any point in your career, particularly when there's a world championship on the line, but like I say, with more build, more time, the time just wasn't just quite right yet for Hangman, for me, in my opinion, and I think in the next 12 months, I do think he will become AEW World Champion. Next question comes from Aussie Lucian Blogs and Podcasts of Royal Quest, Takeover and All Out. Which was your best and worst match and why? Now, first off, this question is not fair. There were so many great matches, and I must admit, I'm going to be upfront right now, I haven't had the time to check out Royal Quest from New Japan Pro Wrestling, so I've only seen the NXT UK Takeover in Cardiff, and I've seen AEW's All Out, and both shows, in my opinion, were fantastic. Some really good matches on both shows. Looking at the NXT Takeover, a great win for tag team wrestling. In a week that WWE buried most of their tag teams on their main roster with that tag team turmoil on Raw, I really enjoyed the triple threat tag team match between the grizzled young veterans, and I always want to do that the way Zach Gibson does it. Grizzled young veterans, as well as Gallus, and as well we had the new champions crowned, Mark Andrews, and of course Flash Morgan Webster, the hometown boys from Wales, and the first Welsh champions in WWE history as well. I'm really happy for those guys, and it was really well put together, particularly the end, the sort of the last 5-10 minutes. That match could have gone any way of all three ways, and it was really well put together. I was a massive fan of it. I really enjoyed it. Of course, the main event was incredible. Walter and Tyler Bate as well. Over 45 minutes. That match was absolutely superb. From AEW's All Out, some of my favourite matches, particularly, I loved the ladder match of death. I'm really partial to a ladder match. It's probably my favourite gimmick match in wrestling, and particularly the way that these two teams put it together, the Lucha Brothers and the Young Bucks. Personally, for me, one of the greatest ladder matches of all time. It does take a lot for me to react these days when I'm watching it to really pop and really, oh my god, that moment where we saw the Canadian Destroyer from Pentagon to Matt Jackson off the top of the ladder to go through the table. I genuinely jumped out of my seat. I was genuinely concerned. I have no idea actually how Matt Jackson didn't die in that match. They literally took everything to the limit in that match, and for me is a definite strong contender of a match of the weekend of those three shows. The other match I really enjoyed the hardcore match as well. I thought it was really well put together, with Jimmy Havoc, Joey Janela, and as well Darby Allin as well. They really fantastic, very creative as well with that hardcore match as well. So I really enjoyed that. I thought Kenny Omega and Pac was a very good singles match as well, and I did actually enjoy Hangman versus Chris Jericho. So there's a lot of solid matches there, but to pick a favourite, and I'm going to say you're really unfair putting me on the spot here to pick one match here. So many great matches. My favourite match here is going to be Walter versus Tyler Bate. Now the reason for this is just because it was just magic. 45 minutes to keep a crowd entertained with no gimmicks, just one-on-one action for 45 straight minutes is absolutely incredible, and these guys deserve a lot of praise for that. It was a nice slow build. I mean, Walter's a very throwback style. They go with a strongman kind of style as well, those British wrestlers. Incredible action between those two. The idea of Tyler Bate not being able to hit a lot of those big moves as well, quite realistic when you look at it and you think to yourself, well, he's a smaller guy trying to put these moves on a big guy to eventually get them through, to get the crowd involved as well. I mean, the crowd were a big part of this match, you know, with the strong boy. Are you watching Vince McMahon? This is wrestling. You could see the appreciation from the crowd in Cardiff. They absolutely loved it. And Nigel McGuinness hitting the nail on the head there, saying that he will remember this match for the rest of his life. And I don't think he's on his own when he talks about that particular match. And I think as well, it was Vic Joseph closed the show perfectly. Tyler Bate, a lot of credit given to the United Kingdom Championship in winning it, but on that evening he gave a lot of credibility in defeat, and that belt means so much more with the way that those two put on a show-stealing effort. So that for me has to be the match. As for the worst match and why, for me personally, I'm going to go to AEW for this particular one, and Best Friends versus Dark Order. Now, for me, really, it's not really the Best Friends' fault, really. I just cannot buy into this Dark Order gimmick. I'm not a fan of it personally. I feel that their look, they're too indie-looking for me. They need something more to really stand out as dark, and I don't know, the kind of minions they have with them. I've not bought into this gimmick yet. It doesn't really quite work for me, and I think the positioning on the card really didn't help this match either. It was after the hardcore match. It was almost like the mid kind of break. If you wanted to have your toilet break or go and make a cup of tea, get a sandwich, that was your time to go and do it, because you had, you know, some important matches before it with Pac and Kenny Omega. Afterwards, then we had the women's number one contendership, Cody versus Shawn Spears, then the ladder match, then the main event. It felt to me this was the filler moment of the card, and for me, I just think it suffered, and I think as well the crowd even wasn't that responsive when it comes to that match. Next comes from Pro Wrestling Fanatic. What matchups do you see happening at the next AEW pay-per-view and NXT Takeover? Well, then let's look at AEW first, shall we? We're going to look then at the pay-per-view, which is going to be Full Gear, which is going to be in November. I think we've got some solid matches. If Jon Moxley is back, I could see him against Kenny Omega. I think that has got potential. I think after the pay-per-view with Pac also interviewing in the press conference with Hangman Page, I expect to see them two have a match which they should have had at Double or Nothing. It'll be interesting to see what happens with Chris Jericho, if he will be defending the belt. I wonder if it could be against Cody. Cody's not been defeated yet in AEW, so really he would seem the most likely with his high-profile spots to have a championship match. And I think it wouldn't be a bad shout as well. I think it's when you want to put on a pay-per-view match or pay-per-view quality for the first pay-per-view for your casual fans, you've got two names that people know. And I think it could lead to, of course, a future heel turn for, or he's already a heel, but MJF, we know it's going to come. He's going to turn on Cody at some stage. It's just a matter of when. Will that happen at the next pay-per-view? Will they have a match before the next pay-per-view? We'll have to wait and see. As for the women, well, I mean, at this time, it's hard really to say, but Britt Baker against Bea Priestley could be a possibility. And perhaps we might get the finals of the Tag Team Championship tournament that could be taking place. I wouldn't be surprised if maybe Santana Ortiz are involved. Maybe we've got the Young Bucks, maybe Pentagon and Phoenix. Hell, if it wasn't a tournament, make it a freeway. I'd love to see that, but I'm sure that that's probably not the direction they're going to go. Looking for NXT Takeover, of course, we've got WarGames. The most likely would be to see the Undisputed Era again in WarGames, and I hope they are draped in Championship Gold when that happens. I would be most intrigued to see that. Perhaps maybe it's all the challengers. Maybe the gold is on the line. That would be a very interesting way to go. Looking at the Women's Championship, Rhea Ripley did get involved with Shayna Baszler. Maybe that could happen. I wouldn't be surprised if Toni Storm is brought up now to the main NXT. Now she's dropped the UK Women's Championship. Maybe she could just go for a rematch, lose that, and she could move on to the next program on the main NXT. Maybe she could be thrown in this here. Maybe Io Shirai. Maybe those two could have a feud. But it does feel like Io Shirai is not finished with Candice LeRae yet. So it could be very interesting. And I think Keith Lee, Dominik Dijakovic, maybe there could be a final match between these two. That would definitely not surprise me if that was to be thrown together. And if that was to be put there, I think it's a solid WarGames looking at that. But we need to look at Matt Riddle as well. I mean, I'm sure he's going to be thrown in the card somewhere. Killian Dane, there's a lot of star power. Pete Dunne, a lot of guys could be thrown in on that card. And it just shows NXT has got a lot of star power right now. We haven't even mentioned Kushida. He could be featured as well. Next question comes from Ringside Rant. In my opinion, the AEW roster is too heavy and tag team heavy. What does AEW have to do to have a well-rounded roster? Well, the good thing for AEW is that they have a 2-hour show once a week, and they have the benefit of doing something that NXT has done, which is something why we've kind of liked NXT for a lot of the time, which is not overexpose their talent. Certain superstars will be featured one week, maybe not the next week, and depending on the level of rivalries, you can bring them in and out of TV. I think this is a problem with Raw and SmackDown, particularly the wildcard factor we have right now. Looking at that, we say, well, look, Roman Reigns is on our TV every week. Shane McMahon dominated TV, both shows every week. You know, people not in favour of that. And I think that there is a potential here that with AEW, they have a chance here with a well-rounded roster to give people breaks here and there when they need it. And they can also, you know, not force people down our throats, which I think is going to be very exciting. They need to, though, establish names and household names and to make people very much over. There could be another show that could be added, maybe like a, you know, to like a Velocity or a Heat or a main event that you've seen for WWE days, where we could get maybe some of the undercard get their chance to expose themselves on there. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see if they keep being the elite as well, going with YouTube. They have got opportunities to really showcase their roster, but for me, looking at it, I would say that they have to establish the top names, and then from there on, they have to make sure they can bring people in and out of the roster on the shows weekly to keep them strong. But I do agree that they have got a lot of tag teams, but I mean, of course, like I say, if you keep your top tier top, your bottom tier to prove themselves and try and build them up, then you can make it work in the long run. I really do. When it comes to the single stars, at the moment, I don't see so much different competitors from the main event scene, but they've got a lot of people that can prove themselves and build themselves up, and I think that makes exciting TV for AEW. So although their roster, yeah, I agree, is heavy, I think that they have got their things in their favour, and I don't think it's going to be such a bad thing when we see them weekly on TNT. Next question comes from Jake Jonas. Do you think Triple H burying Punk or Punk never getting a WrestleMania main event led to him quitting? CM Punk, I'm believing we're obviously talking about here. And also, do you think AEW will put a serious dent in WWE ratings in October? Well, first off, we'll take, as we've been talking about AEW a lot, we'll start with AEW. Not really, because of course the AEW show is going to be on different days than the main roster shows, Raw and SmackDown, so it's not going to have any effect on the Raw and SmackDown ratings. NXT, potentially, but then if NXT is going to be on the WWE network the following day, unless WWE decides to take that off of the network the following day, we have got an opportunity to watch AEW live, and we can watch NXT the next day, or for a lot of people, they can DVR, watch NXT first, and that AEW second. Which, so I mean, on Wednesdays, yeah, there's going to be a little bit of war for supremacy, but I mean, I don't think it's going to make too much difference to WWE ratings. The question for AEW is, are they going to be able to bring in enough casual fans who walked away from WWE and have them as their fans? And I think that's going to be the real telling point for AEW when it comes to getting the ratings for their own show on TNT. But going to CM Punk, I do think that the WrestleMania was definitely one of the factors. I think he just got tired of professional wrestling. I think he was overworked. When we've listened to his podcast at previous times, it just goes to show that CM Punk had enough of wrestling. And just say, I know it's getting a bit dark around me, so I will try and make this video not so much longer. Yeah, I do think when you look at the WrestleMania particularly, I do think it was a big deal for CM Punk. Obviously, he becomes so big in 2011, but it was understood in 2012 why it was given to The Rock and John Cena, a once-in-a-lifetime match. People really wanted to see that. But then when we got to the following year and that match was repeated, that wasn't needed. CM Punk was champion for 434 days. It was his time, his year to be the main event of WrestleMania. And the right thing to do was to make that a triple threat match if you was going to do it. We didn't need to see John Cena versus The Rock again. We could have either had Punk versus The Rock, or we could have had a triple threat. I think that would have been the right move to do. But did it have something to do with him quitting? Perhaps. I mean, I think it was quite clear when he did a promo when he was going to start the program leading towards facing The Undertaker at WrestleMania 29. He said, I'm not in the main event, so I don't need to be part of WrestleMania. This doesn't mean anything to me. And I think he genuinely meant that when he said it. So I do think that there is a little bit to that, yeah. The next question is going to come from Mr. Mojito, and I've got to say, big fan of Mojitos, the cocktail, so great shout on the username there. Who do you think was the best member of the NWO? Well, for me, looking at that then, we look at the NWO, they had about 500 members over their time in WCW, but to take the question seriously, I would say that you have to go with the original. What was the philosophy behind the NWO, the New World Order taking over, and of course the originals were the Outsiders with Scott Hall, Kevin Nash, and as well as that, of course, Hollywood Hulk Hogan. Hall and Nash became cool, really cool. I mean, Hall was cool as Razor Ramon, but Nash wasn't cool as Diesel in WWE or WWF at the time. And those guys were really cool. But for me, I'm going to give Hollywood Hogan as the answer, just purely because he was a face, and I wasn't really such a big Hogan fan. I'm probably someone who watched Judah Hogan, but I knew he was always going to win. I found his matches boring, stale, and rubbish. I always enjoyed the mid-card a lot more back then. So for me personally, I would actually say that it was refreshing, it was a great change, and I did actually enjoy to hate Hollywood Hulk Hogan. So for me, that made a lot of sense. So he will be my official answer for this question. Now, I'm going to put a visual on the screen then here for this one for Get Show Wrestling Podcast. I'm not sure I have a great answer for this, but what do you call this threesome? Of course, pictured here, the best friends there of Chuck Taylor and Trent Beretta, and of course we've got Orange Cassidy as well. It's a great still you've got there as well for this threesome here. I mean, you could look at Orange Cassidy. He couldn't give a toss in that hug. He was no way. He can't be bothered with anything, can he? And he's definitely not going to hug these guys back. To try and think of a clever name for this, and I'm going to put this out to you guys on YouTube. If you can come up with a better name, drop it in the comments section right now for me. But I'm going to try and use an old American comedy here to just try and give just a little bit of comedy element to this. 2.5 Men is what I'm going to go for this particular one. But yeah, I'd like to know your thoughts in the comments below. Yeah, definitely will be interesting a threesome, as is mentioned there, when we see them on AEW TV. It's good to see Orange Cassidy is all elite, and it's seen that he's has got a connection with the best friends, and we'll see how that is going to be going forward as perhaps they continue a rivalry with the Dark Order. We'll have to wait and see. But that's all from me anyway on this particular video of Ask SCW. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you've got questions for the next episode, episode 8, drop it in the comment section on this video right now, or you can message me on Twitter. Remember, it's SCW Wrestling Channel or at SCW_Steve. That's all from me anyway. Thank you for watching. Please like, share, subscribe, spread the word of SCW, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode here on YouTube.com. Take care.